literacy is literacy skills for students are critical in the 4 learning domains. And when we think about the whole child and what literacy skills mean for lifelong pursuits for students, it actually is literacy skills called out as one of the 10 priority strategies, and that's strategy number 9. So even though literacy is a foundation for the whole entire plan, it is specifically called out in that strategy number 9. So today's intended outcomes are that we are going to define phonological and phonemic awareness. We are going to understand how phonological awareness fits into the science of language and literacy instruction, of teaching those. And then we're going to take a look at how to teach lessons and practice the evidence-based strategies for delivering the lessons. And then finally, we will talk just a little bit about how phonological awareness fits within a multi-tiered system of support for reading instruction, since we know it's one of those foundational skills in the big 5 ideas of reading. So we're going to start today with some active participation, and I'm going to put a poll up, and we want to kind of know where are you right now in your stage of implementation with the Heggerty curriculum. You obviously came here today or were interested because you maybe have heard of it or maybe you haven't, but we just want to know where you are. So what I will do is I'll launch this poll, and it's going to come up on your screen, and you will have the opportunity to answer the question. So I'm going to go ahead and hit launch poll, and now you should see it on your screen. So go ahead and choose the response that best fits where you are. All right, we see some coming in. I'll give people about another maybe 10 seconds to respond. We've got about almost 80% of you have responded so far. And we have 210 folks in the session today, so that's wonderful.
As new people are coming in, we want to remember to, if you could please make sure that you're muted. And at the bottom where it says stop video, if you click on stop video, that will help with the bandwidth. So we won't have technology interruptions. That will definitely help with that if you're muted and your video is off.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and end this poll, and then I'm going to share with you. So everybody should be able to see that. So we have about 39% of us are brand new. We've got 12% implementing in the fall. Some are brand new, but they want to start implementing virtually right now. And we have a good majority that were using the program before the school closure, and now they want to begin using it with their students online. And about 5% are currently using it in online instruction. So thank you for that. That gives us some perspective of where people are, and hopefully we'll meet your needs today with this session. So I'm going to stop sharing that poll, and I'm going to hand it over to Jackie, and she's going to take us through the next section.
All right, good morning. There we go. Oh. All right, so we're going to start by talking about why, the science behind language and literacy instruction. So Lindsay had talked about that was one of our goals today, was to get some more information about the science behind this language and literacy instruction. So that's where we're going to start. So we're going to define phonological awareness today and phonemic awareness, and we're going to talk about the differences between the two. We're going to clarify how this fits into the science of language and literacy. So we're going to talk about that why, we'll talk about how it fits in, and then we're going to talk about the what, which is the Heggerty curriculum that we're going to be going over. So we will have some discussions. We do want to make this as interactive as we possibly can, but with over 200 people, we want to make sure that you're muted, but we will have some polls in here, and then we will have some time to be in the chat box as well. There we go. Whoop, it's too many. Lindsay, can you make that go back?
Mm-hmm.
To the Ohio's plan.
There you go.
There we go. Okay, there's just a delay. All right, so we're going to start here. We're going to start with talking about Ohio's plan to raise literacy achievement. So if you have not yet read the plan, this is available on ODE's website. It's always there and available. This would be a good way for you to kind of get up on all the lingo and the purpose for why we're doing what we're doing with Ohio's plan to raise literacy achievement. So I pulled out a couple things off to the side there. One, you see the simple view of reading. So this really ties into the simple view of reading. It's because this is a significant component of word recognition within the simple view of reading. And you notice the simple view is that multiplication problem. So we talk about this every time we bring people together because this is the multiplication problem that builds skilled readers. So, and we know from knowing our multiplication that anything multiplied by 0 equals 0. So we need to have a balance on both sides. We need to have students who are well-rounded in word recognition and also language comprehension in order to make a skilled reader with reading comprehension. We also, at the bottom right there, you see the language and literacy continuum. So this addresses literacy development at every stage. It's not about the age of the reader. It's about the stage of the reader. So students are never too old to get this component of word recognition. And so we want to make sure that we provide that to every student, no matter what stage of development they're in, because word recognition belongs in every stage. It's not advancing for me now. There we go. Okay, maybe there's just a delay. So we're going to talk about Scarborough's rope for just a second. So this takes what we just talked about on the previous slide just a little bit further. So we're talking about in Scarborough's reading rope, the critical components of word recognition. So you see that word recognition part down at the bottom, where we specifically call out phonological awareness in that bottom section of the reading rope. So that language comprehension multiplied by that word recognition, it all braids together and makes a strong, skilled reader when all those components come together. So today we're taking out that phonological awareness piece and we're really diving into that because this is so critical. We learn to read from speech to print. So not the other way around. And for a long time, that was what we thought. So we really want to call this out because it is so critical. Students learn, we all learn to read from speech to print. So bringing in that speech awareness is what is really going to help our students. So what the research says. The research talks about explicit phonemic awareness instruction. So we're going to use a strategy that Anita Archer talks to us about all the time with explicit instruction. So you see on your screen, you see this slide and there are some words that are in bold. So I know we can't hear you and we can't see you, but we know that using this explicit model of instruction really helps you to retain the information. So as I'm reading it, if you can read out loud to yourself those bolded words, that's the parts that we really want to pay attention to. So what the research says, explicit phonemic awareness instruction increases reading and spelling achievement among preschoolers, primary grade children and students with learning disabilities. So in other words, we're talking about all students having access to this explicit instruction on a daily basis. So the research also talks about the lack of phonemic awareness. That we know that the lack of phonemic awareness is the most powerful determinant of the likelihood of failure to read. So it means this is absolutely critical that we build these skills in students in Tier 1 instruction. If we build this in Tier 1 instruction, then we won't have to go back and intervene with most students later. So of course, there's going to be some students who still need additional supports, and we might need to go back and fill in some gaps and give additional scaffolding to some students, but we're really trying to flip that triangle to the way that it really needs to be and provide that core Tier 1 instruction for all students. So if we're talking about what we really need to do, and we think about students that we've worked with in the younger grades, particularly kindergartners. So if we think about those kindergartners, can we really predict if the kindergartners that we have will be poor readers in second, third, fourth grade and beyond? Well, it's pretty alarming that with 90% accuracy, we can tell the students who would be in the bottom 10% of readers if we're looking specifically at their phonological awareness, their semantics in vocabulary, so their meaning, are they gaining meaning from vocabulary, and their orthographic knowledge, so how they represent that spoken language in written form. When we take a look at those three components, we can predict whether a student will struggle in second grade and beyond. So the Heggerty curriculum is put in place to make sure that the students have that strong background in phonological awareness. So this is something that historically has been omitted from curriculums. So Heggerty is that supplement to what we're already doing, and it puts the pieces in place to strengthen that phonemic awareness. So as I talked about briefly, because we learn to read from speech to print, we want to strengthen that phonological processing system in the brain. So this is all about spoken sounds. There is no print involved when we're talking about phonological awareness and phonemic awareness. But this helps students build that sight word knowledge. So it seems really weird that we're going to talk about building up sight word knowledge when all we're talking about is sounds, and we're saying there's no print. But it's really connected to the retrieval of sight words. So this is about connecting that phonology to the orthography because we learn from speech to print. So we need students to have that really strong foundation in order is really critical. Sorry, Lindsay.
We had to mute some other folks and that muted us. So go ahead and go back, Jackie.
Yep, sorry about that. Okay.
Nope, that's all right. We just had some background noise in it. So
got it. Yep. Can we, I'm going to go back one slide.
Yeah, I can.
Before we chat.
Can you do it?
Oh, it popped up. There we go. Okay. So we're going to go back to that Anita Archer explicit instructional strategy because we really want to solidify this learning. And we know that when you are more of an active participant, that really helps with solidifying this learning for you. So why are we talking about phonemic awareness? So let's go through this together. Again, when you see those bolded words, if you want to say them out loud to yourself, so people around you at home might wonder what you're doing, but just know that this is helping you. All right, why phonemic awareness? Every point in a child's development of word level reading is substantially affected by phonological awareness skills, from learning letter names all the way up to efficiently adding new multisyllabic words to their automatic word vocabulary. So what does that mean? It means that if you want students to have great sight word recognition, then we need to teach phonemic awareness. So if you want more information after we do this session, there's some really great resources for you, and I have them pictured off to the side. So these resources are from David Kilpatrick, who does a lot of research and a lot of writing on this very topic. So the Essentials book, this I'm going to tell you, it's a much deeper read, but gives you a lot of information, not just on phonemic and phonological awareness, but really dives into assessing and preventing and overcoming reading difficulties in all areas. So, and phonemic awareness is at the heart of this. This Equipped for Reading Success goes really deeply into phonemic awareness and how to assess phonological awareness skills, automatic and efficient retrieval of sight words, and has a whole section in the back about 1-minute activities that if a student does need tier 2 and tier 3 interventions, this will be really helpful. And this is helpful also for older students to do those phonological awareness skills. We're going to address both tier 2 and tier 3 in other sessions, but today we're really focusing on this core instruction in tier 1. So it's time to chat. So our co-hosts are going to open up the chat so that so everyone can see the chat that's going on. So we want to know, how can phonological awareness instruction benefit all students? So think about those things that we just talked about, or that I just talked about and that you were engaged with, and just answer in the chat. How can phonological awareness instruction benefit all students? Do we have the chat box open? When you're down in the chat box, make sure you click on to everyone so everyone can see your chat.
Looks like some responses are coming in now.
Yes.
And I think Lisa and Candace were going to share a few of those from some of the participants. So
yes, I see phonological awareness from Monica. It's the basis on which we learn from Susie. Emily Tyler, it helps with decodable books later on. Takiba Thompson provides a foundation for reading. Back to Monica, I called it phonological awareness benefits all students by providing a foundation of sound manipulation before tying that sound to a letter. So we have some really great comments.
I like that Haley Robinson said that students are more likely to become strong readers if they have this foundational skill.
Darlene Dobbins, students need to be able to make each letter sound out loud so that they can blend them together to make words.
I like Heather talking about correlating the
Oh,
Yeah,
I
there are
like
some.
Kristen Koenigsberger, explicit teaching benefits everyone. That's an excellent one.
Yeah, there are awesome responses in here. So thank you so much. We'll go ahead and shut the chat back down and we'll kind of keep moving here. So thanks, Lisa and Candace, for being the hostesses for today. We're so appreciated. And remember, as you come in, or if something happens, please keep your microphones muted. We did have to mute a little bit ago because there was some background noise, and that muted Jackie and I as well. So, all right. So, Jackie, I think you're continuing here, so I'm going to shut my chat back down.
We just want to clarify some terms before we dive in any further. So we're talking, you've heard me say phonological awareness and phonemic awareness. So we just want to make sure that we clarify these things for you. So phonological awareness is all about speech sounds. So phonological awareness is the umbrella. So if you think of that, a big umbrella, it's the big sounds all the way down to the little sounds. So those little sounds are known as phonemes. So that's the smallest meaningful unit of sound in the English language. So we're talking about phonological awareness. So it's that big umbrella, and we're going to talk all the way down into those little sounds. So it's about the ability to manipulate those sounds and sound structures in words. So this deals with spoken language. Just takes a second for me to advance. Lindsay, can we go one more?
I'm trying. Hold on one second.
It's stuck. So while Lindsay gets that, so we're going to keep clarifying some terms. So we're talking about phonological awareness, and then phonemic awareness comes underneath that. So it's a subset of phonological awareness. So phonological awareness is that big umbrella, and then phonemic awareness is one subset that comes underneath that. So phonological awareness includes all sounds, the sounds of words, the sounds of syllables, those big units of sound. Phonemic awareness is about those individual sounds. So those individual phonemes, those small units of sound that we can make. And sometimes those individual sounds are talking about an individual letter, but sometimes they're talking about multiple letters that make one sound. So we really want to make sure that we recognize that. So in phonological awareness, we're talking about segmenting, blending, substituting phonemes. So these are all different skills that we're going to work with the students. So we're going to define phonemes. So phonemes aren't necessarily that one letter, right? So they can be multiple letters that make one meaningful unit of sound in spoken language. So phonemes are linguistic units, not the units of writing. So in phonics, we talk about the writing and the vowel teams that go together and all kinds of different ways in order to make those sounds. But so I want you to think about it this way. So if we take a look at the word bit. So let's tap out the word bit. B, I, t. That's 3 phonemes. B, I, t. And then the word bait. Let's tap out those phonemes. B, A, t. 3 phonemes again, but it's got 4 letters because we're not concerned about the units of writing right now and how that translates to spelling. But what we are trying to get people to listen to is how many phonemes they can hear and the units of sound. So try boat. B, O, T. 3 phonemes again. And then this word, bought. B, aw, t. 3 phonemes. A lot more units of writing, but we're talking about 3 phonemes, 3 units of sound. And what we want is for students to be able to hear all of the units of sound and be able to manipulate those units as we go through our phonological awareness. Yep, there we go. So as we talked about, we're really talking about all 3 tiers of instruction, but what we're focused on today is that core instruction, tier 1 instruction for all students. We're talking about students in grades pre-K through 2nd grade receiving phonological awareness during tier 1 instruction, 10 to 15 minutes every single day. We have to make sure that we are intentional about doing it 10 to 15 minutes every single day. But we're talking also about students in kindergarten through grade 5 having phonemic awareness instruction daily, where we start to move them in those upper grades of that band towards advanced phonemic awareness skills. So we don't leave any of this just in the primary grades. We also build this into tier 1 instruction daily for students for advanced phonemic awareness skills as well. And we'll talk about what are some of those advanced skills. So on top of this, some students, so if we're providing this to all, then some students might need additional supports in phonemic awareness in tier 2 and tier 3. It might be necessary for us to go back and still fill in gaps or provide them with additional support. But the way that we do that is that we assess so that we diagnose before we prescribe. So we don't just say everyone's getting phonemic awareness. We make sure that we know the individual students that need those additional supports, but we provide this tier 1 core instruction to all students.
All right, so it's time for another poll. And I'm going to go ahead and pull that up, maybe. Go back here. All right, so we're going to go to the second one. All right, I'm going to launch this one, and this is who should receive phonological phonemic awareness instruction. So you now have an opportunity on your screen to respond to this poll. You'll see those responses come in. As you're responding to the poll, would you also please go ahead and put your first and last name as the participant name in your window? And you can do that by clicking on, there's 3 dots by your name, and you should be able to change your name. If not, we will have an attendance certificate at the end that you can do with a survey for credit, but some people come up as cell phone numbers and different things like that. So if you're able to do that, go ahead. So it looks like we have about 82% of the votes in, and I'm going to end this poll. And now I'm going to share the results. So most of you said that all of the above. So, and that's kind of what Jackie just went through. And you would also, be correct if you picked any of the other responses. And one of the things that, we talked about is that at the 3rd grade level, we really the Heggerty was designed for pre-K to second grade. However, at the third grade level, you may also use this with students, particularly if you have never, if they have not had Tier 1 phonemic and phonological awareness instruction previously. So until you get to those students who have not, you know, until you build that foundation where you're doing it in pre-K and K and in 1, those students in third grade may also need that. So thank you for responding to that poll, and we're going to keep moving forward. Jackie talked about the why of teaching phonological awareness, and now we're going to move into the how to get ready. And so we're going to cover a few things in this section. So we're really going to start to learn just a little bit about phonemes and how they are classified. So whether or not they might be continuous or stop sounds or voiced or unvoiced. And we can just barely touch on this today, but we want to give you just a little bit of background information in case you're unfamiliar with that. And then we're going to review just a few key elements of explicit instruction. And I know Jackie's mentioned Dr. Anita Archer, and so we are going to continue to talk about some of the foundational aspects of her explicit instruction that she teaches. And then we're going to talk just briefly again about how to differentiate for diverse learners, because we know, as Jackie shared with us at the beginning, when we look at the language and literacy continuum, phonemic awareness instruction is for all students, regardless of, you know, where they fall. And so we want to make sure that all students are receiving this critical instruction. So we want to start with just talking a little bit about phonemes, which are individual speech sounds. And they're classified either by where they're made in the mouth or how they're made in the mouth. And so we classify them by place and by manner. And so where in the mouth is just basically, is it a sound that's made in the front of the mouth, the middle of the mouth, or the back of the mouth? And then with manner, we're thinking about what do the parts of our mouth do? What does the lips do, the tongue, the teeth, and how do they work to move the sound through our vocal tract? So when I think about the place of a sound, for example, if I say, you can tell that that phoneme is made at the front of my mouth because my lips are together. So another one you might compare that to is the k sound. The k sound is made more in the back of my mouth. And so that just is how one way we can classify sounds. For manner, another example might be if I go back to the sound, I know that my lips are together. So my lips are the ones that are controlling how that sound is made. But if I contrast that with a t sound, my tongue would be up behind my front teeth. So we might talk about where or how that is made within the mouth. And you might be asking yourself, like, you know, why is this important? Well, it's important because as teachers of young children, you need to know how to make these sounds within your own mouth so that you can support your students in also being able to know how to make these sounds. Your students are going to come, you know, maybe not knowing how to put their tongue or their teeth or where to put their mouth or where a sound is made. And so it's really important as a foundation for phonological and phonemic awareness instruction that students understand that. The other thing that we want to talk about is voicing with sounds. And so the other thing I'm going to teach you now is if you put your hand on your throat like this and you say b, b. So you can feel that your vocal cords vibrate. So if you haven't done it, I promise we're not turning your videos on to let anyone see you in this session, but go ahead and try that and see what you feel. B. Okay, now put your hand back on your throat and say, do you feel the difference? One, with the b, our voice was on, and with the p, our voice is off. And again, these are really important conversations to have with students because they may not be aware of what their mouths and what their voice box is doing when they make certain sounds. So we also have a way that we can kind of talk about phonemes or individual sounds. And there's multiple types, but we're only going to really touch on two today. And those are continuous sounds and stop sounds. And so when we talk about these, continuous sounds are just that the airflow comes up through your vocal tract and it just keeps going. So you can hold the sound for a very long time. So the s would be an example. I could go on and on and on, and you can try the s right now. You can also try knowing again that these are continuous sounds. And then the vowel sounds as well. So ah, I can hold that sound for a long time. Then contrast that with stop sounds. And what stop sounds are is they just produce a short burst of air and then they stop. So because they're stopped by something in our vocal tract, be it our, our teeth, our tongue, our lips. So for the stop sounds, these would be things like b, g, and t. So you can go ahead and try those too. So continuous sounds and stop sounds. And one thing that's also important to remember, particularly with the stop sounds, you can see here at the bottom, is you really want to avoid adding in that extra phoneme or that schwa sound. So you'll notice I've been clipping my sounds, and it's really important to do that. So instead of saying b and g and t, it's b, t, g, d. Do you see how I'm clipping my sound? So you don't want to add in that extra sound, because if you do, you're actually adding in an extra phoneme. So we're going to talk now, like I said, a couple minutes about Dr. Archer's explicit instruction cycle. And one thing that's really nice about the Heggerty curriculum is it already puts these inherent steps into it. It's just a natural part of the curriculum. So there's an opportunity for that for that model, that I do it piece, then the we do it, where the students work on it with you, and then there's that independent practice. And it's really important that it's scaffolded this way, because this, we know, helps support students in really retaining the information. The other piece that's really critical, another critical element of Dr. Anita Archer's work, is active engagement and active participation for all students. And Heggerty does lend itself to eliciting a lot of choral responses, hand signals and gestures and actions. And we know that all of these things really support students in learning and engaging, because they're able to call and respond and be active participants in the lesson. And finally, I know Jackie mentioned this once, and we'll talk about this multiple times, but when we're thinking about explicit instruction is not slow. It's a very brisk pace, and we keep moving. This is a 10 to 12 minute lesson a day, no more than 15. And so that brisk pace is really critical. And some ways that you can think about when you're planning and preparing for your Heggerty lessons are to ensure that you preview the lesson ahead of time. It's really critical to establish routines around the use of the Heggerty curriculum within your classroom, so that students know exactly what to expect and what you'll be doing and when you'll be doing it. Using clear, concise teacher language is really important also in this program to keep that time. We may be adding an extra language today just to share some information with you, but when you are doing this, you are not adding in extra teacher talk in this session with your students. You also want to limit digression, so you're not going on to explain things to the students. These are quick exercises. And then without getting into those explanations, then that will help you stay focused. So it's really important to do those kinds of things. So we're not, expanding talk. So the next piece then is that we know that all students can benefit from phonemic awareness instruction, and particularly for some of our students even with low incidence disabilities. So it's really important that we think about the necessity to not only teach these skills to those students, but also how we can do that. So we may use adapted materials. Some examples might be that we use a voice output communication aid like a Big Mac, or possibly some other type of system that has some voice output. We might use different kinds of manipulatives and things like that. So when we're thinking about students, the explicit instruction component and it being systematic is really critical for all students, and particularly for our students with disabilities. So we have our second chat question now. And so Candace and Lisa are going to go ahead and open that chat back up, and I'm going to put that question up. So the question now is, what are important considerations for how we teach phonological and phonemic awareness? So think on that for a second, and then you're going to go ahead and populate that chat with some of your responses. So I'm seeing some good things like proper sound use. So that would probably be not putting those schwas in there. That's really important. I see systematic and explicit, thinking about the routines. Did you have some, Lisa?
Yeah, showing / telling kids what parts of the mouth to use. Routines and active engagement.
I picked up on that one too. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. I really like student background knowledge on phonological awareness. Brisk pace, active engagement.
I see some people mentioning routine and lots of practice.
Yes. Ability to hear, ability to count, segment. Very good point.
Yeah, and that use of explicit instruction. Someone mentioned that I do, we do, you do.
Yeah, I saw that several times too, and some of the other elements of it, like that active participation. Just one thing we're trying to model here today. So
practice daily. Yep, we see a lot of that as a pattern.
Well, thank you so much for all those responses. You're definitely picking up on some of the important components. So I'm going to hand it back to Jackie, and she's really going to start diving into the more specific information about the Heggerty curriculum.
All right, so we've talked about the why, and we've talked about some how, and now we're going to talk about the what. The what is, there we go. What we're talking about is exploring this Heggerty curriculum. So why we're doing this, it's so important that we provide all students with that phonological awareness instruction on a daily basis, and the Heggerty curriculum really is going to help us to do that. So we're going to look at and understand the scope and sequence of the phonological skills that are included in the Heggerty curriculum. There are some hand motions that go along with this curriculum, and so we're going to go over some of those hand motions. That's part of that practice that you're going to dive into. So it brings all of those, it brings multiple modalities together. So as students are hearing things, sometimes that hearing of the sound is abstract. So that hand motion that we will do brings a concrete action to those abstract sounds. So I know Lindsay mentioned it earlier, and we're going to keep talking about that brisk pace and how it is important to practice ahead of time. You will get really good at this in a short amount of time when you practice those skills and hand motions. No one, not Lindsay or I or anyone in your district, is ever expecting anyone to memorize a lesson from the Heggerty books. So it is perfectly acceptable at all times to have your lesson right in front of you on your lap, because it has lots of the examples in each skill. There are words listed, so you know exactly what to say and you know the words that you're going to use. You do not have to memorize a lesson and do it by memorization. It's perfectly acceptable to have that in front of you on your lap as you are delivering the lesson. So these are the 3 levels of the Heggerty curriculum. So that Heggerty has 3 levels. So the purple is the pre-K version, and then blue is kindergarten, and yellow is the primary version. So the primary version is appropriate to use in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade. Lots of districts that we're working with are adopting this for 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade. So the lessons aren't going to change, but you won't have to worry about that. We're talking about sounds. It's not like they're writing them or doing anything several times over where students are going to say, I already did that word. There's lots of different examples for them to do. And so you're going to work through these lessons from 1 all the way to the end. So in 2nd and 3rd grade, there's some directions in the front that will tell you exactly where to start. And if your students have never had a phonemic awareness or phonological awareness curriculum before, you can start at week 1. That's perfectly acceptable. As the years go by and students in your district consistently have had phonological awareness instruction, this may want to come out of 3rd grade and be something that stays in 1st and 2nd grade. And 3rd grade can then move on to making sure that we focus on those advanced phonemic awareness skills like they will do in 4th and 5th grade. If your students in older grades need those intervention activities, we did talk about the Equipped for Reading Success. So that's also something that can be added in, but we're talking about that core 1 instruction for all students. So let's talk a little bit more about the program. So this is pre-K through 2nd or 3rd grade. The Heggerty program is intended to be whole class. So if small groups work better for you, then by all means, go ahead and do it in a small group. But this is intended to be whole class. We don't want to do small groups just to say we're doing small groups, because that can just suck the time out of your literacy block. We do want to keep this to 10 to 15 minutes a day. So one of the things that Tim Shanahan often talks about when he talks on his blog or in the articles that he releases, he does talk about why are we teaching in small groups when it can be done in whole class. So this is already set out for you to do in your whole group setting. It's that quick, brisk pace of 10 to 15 minutes a day. When you get started, it's going to take you a little longer. That's okay. So when I started doing it, it was like 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes. I'm reading along. But as you practice and you see, okay, wait, I do need to know ahead of time what this is going to sound like, what it's going to look like, and you minimize that teacher talk and you minimize those teachable moments, and you do this at a brisk pace, you will get it down to 10 to 12 minutes pretty quickly. So what are those skills that are being taught in the Heggerty curriculum? So here's a list of 10 phonological awareness skills that are done on a daily basis. So it's really important that we don't skip skills. So you might think, well, my students, they know how to rhyme. We don't want you to skip those skills. So because we go from big sounds to little sounds, that's what we're going to do in this curriculum. Taking from big sounds down to little sounds. They're going to rhyme with those big chunks of speech. We're going to talk about onset and onset fluency, blending, identifying those final and medial phonemes, those sounds that come at the end of the word and the middle of the word. We know those are so much more difficult for students to identify than the sounds at the beginning of a word. They're going to work on segmenting, adding phonemes, deleting phonemes, substituting phonemes. All of these things are included in the curriculum. So you never want to skip any of these 10 skills. If you're finding that you're short on time, you can always remove some of the examples. So if there's 10 words listed in one of the skills, you can do 5 that day if you're short on time. Or if you find that you're going longer as you start this, you can give fewer examples within the skill, but you don't want to skip any skills. Those last 2 parts, that letter naming and language awareness, now those are the only 2 parts where print can be shown. So we're talking all about sounds. So in the letter naming, we'll show letter cards to the students. We're not going to run through the entire alphabet every day. And this part can be connected to what you're doing in your phonics. But we're going to run through some things because we want to make this automatic for students. It is really critical for them to know those letter names. So we're going to show those cards to students. In language awareness, we might be showing a nursery rhyme that we're going to work on, or a sentence for students. The nursery rhymes are included in the purple, that pre-K book, and in the kindergarten, the blue book, and in the yellow book up to about week 9. And then they're going to come out. But teachers in the primary book can continue this work if you wanted to go back into the purple and blue book, maybe borrow one from someone else and get some of those nursery rhymes, or add in some poems, very short poems, because we don't want to extend that time. But you can continue that language awareness, getting students to critically think about how many words are in this sentence or what words rhyme with each other. That's why we bring in that language awareness part, and the only parts of the lesson that will have any print. So now it's time to dive into the book. So if you have your books, that's great. So you can reference your books. If you don't have your books, we had provided that link at the beginning, or it was sent out in an email as well. So you can take a look at the scope and sequence. So in the scope and sequence, on those Roman numeral pages, right at the beginning of the book, you're going to see several pages starting on page 4. And we see the scope and sequence that talks about each skill and the lesson components that are included in the skill, and then the lesson plans by week and the page numbers you can find them on. So when we head to the next slide, this is what I find really helpful, is this visual of the scope and sequence. So when we take a look at the visual, you're going to notice a couple of things. One, those skills that we're talking about are right there down the side. So there's where the skills are listed that we're saying don't skip any of those. And then as you go across, we're talking about getting more complex from larger to smaller units, because it's more complex to break it down into smaller pieces.
Hello. Not much. How about you?
So, oh, do we need to mute?
I think we're okay.
There we go.
You
Okay.
muted quickly.
So we provided this for you in the resource. If you have your book, take a look at it there. And what we're going to do is we're going to give you just a few minutes to dive into the scope and sequence, maybe stretch your legs for just a few minutes. Take a look at this, and then we're going to come back and dive into those lesson parts. All right. Hopefully you enjoyed the beach break. Giving you a little break from our norm. All right, so we're going to get into the lessons. So we have a short video for you because we thought it was really important for you to see what a lesson looks like. So we have a example of a kindergarten classroom. This would be week 25 on a Monday for this kindergarten classroom. So we want you to think about the elements of explicit instruction that I do, we do, you do. So we want you to pay attention to the teacher talk and the lack of, the pacing, and the sound production. So for right now, the chat box is going to remain closed. And then when we stop the video, Lisa and Candace will open that chat box up and you can put in some of the things that you noticed.
Here's one. Just ones in your bowls. Make sure you're sitting crisscross applesauce because we're ready to roll. All right, today we're going to be doing vowel sounds. Remember, when we have a vowel sound, they have two sounds. Okay, a hard sound and a soft sound. Ready? Letter is I, sound is I or I. Letter is O, sound is A or O. Letter is U, sound is or U. Letter is Y, sound is Y or I or E. Letter is E, sound is E or E. Letter is A, sound is A or A. Good, we're getting into our blends now. Here we go. Letters are SL, sound is full. Letters are BL, sound is bull. Letters are FL, sound is full. Letters are WH, sound is w. Letters are SH, sound is sh. Letters are CL, sound is cool. Letters are CH, sound is ch. Letters are PL, sound is pull. Letters are TH, sound is or. Letters are GL, sound is goal. Good job, kiss your brain. Yeah. Good job. I say the rhymes, you say the rhymes. Thumbs up if they rhyme, thumbs down if they don't. Remember, rhyming has the same beginning or ending. Rhyme has the same ending. Ooh, rhyme has the same ending. Good, here we go. Flip, clip. Flip, clip. Thumbs. Good. Plan, plane. Plan, plane. Good, show me those thumbs. Glad, plaid. Glad, plaid. Thumbs. Good. Slow, slim. Slow, slim. Thumbs. Good job. Flap, slap. Flap, slap. Thumbs. Those do rhyme. Bless, slush. Bless, slush. Don't sound the same. Flash, plug. Flash, plug. Don't sound the same. Flop, plop. Flop, plop. Good. Click, slick. Click, slick. Thumbs. Awesome sauce. Glass, class. Glass, class. Good job. Quietly play that air guitar. Go. All right, eyes on me. I say the word, you say the word. Tell me the blend you hear. Black. Black. What's that? Bull. Clam. Clam. What's that? Bull. Glow. Glow. What's that? Bull. Plus. Plus. Pull. Good job. Slick. Slick. What's that? Pull. Clock. Clock. What's that? Pull. Robert, sit up. Sled. Sled. What's that? Pull. Good job. Flat. Flat. What's that? Pull. Good job. Blimp.
Blimp.
What's up?
Bull.
Flip.
Flip.
What's up?
Bull.
Good job. Give yourself a pat on the back and say, yummy.
Yummy.
Okay, listen to me. I'm going to chop the word. You tell me what the word is. Upset.
Upset.
Eyeball.
Eyeball.
Into.
Into.
Afternoon.
Afternoon.
Classroom.
Classroom.
Something.
Something.
Keyboard.
Keyboard.
Snowflake.
Snowflake.
Tiptoe.
Tiptoe.
Sunday.
Sunday.
Good job. Give a friend a high five and say, yeah, you.
Yeah, you.
Okay, eyes on me. I'm going to say the word and we're going to punch it up. Ready?
Yes.
Cook.
Cook.
Cook. What's up?
Cook.
What sound do we hear at the top?
So before we sent you to watch the video a little bit, Jackie asked you to talk or think about the pace, the teacher talk, and the sound production. So Candace and Lisa are now going to go ahead and open the chat again, and I want you to populate it with what did you notice about the pace, the teacher talk, and the sound production as she was facilitating this whole group lesson. So we're just going to give you a couple minutes or maybe a minute to do that, and Lisa will share out some of your responses.
Quick, brisk pace. The pace was non-stop, so lots of observation of the pace, consistent and clear expectations. Quick but very structured. Students knew what to expect and how to react. Very good point. Very fast-paced, clear routine in place. Teacher, then student, consistent routine, rhythm and expectations, simple instructions, very important. No time wasted. Excellent. Sounds associated with movement. Good point.
Maybe like one more. Is there one more really good one?
Yes, hand motion to correspond with each sound. Students were very involved.
Thank you so much. So Lisa will go ahead and close the chat, and we're going to jump right into the skills now. So you may have put your book aside or those online handouts, but you want to make sure you have those kind of out in front of you again, because you want to keep referencing it as we go through the different skills. Also, I wanted to remind you that this is a time for active participation. So Jackie and I may have to cut a few of our examples short for time's sake, but we do want you participating along with us as we demonstrate some of the hand motions and some of the exercises. So, and then remember that one of Dr. Anita Archer's elements of explicit instruction is active participation and frequent student responses. So we want you, even though we can't hear you or see you, and we promise we will not put you on video and have you demonstrate any of these hand motions during this session, but we do want you actively working with us. So Jackie and I are going to be asking you to join in, and we also are going to be modeling the I do it, we do it together, and then you do it. So, and the one piece too that I wanted to say as we get into these skills is that the purpose of this and what Dr. Kilpatrick talks about is this whole notion of automaticity. And so it's not just enough for students to know these skills, but they have to be able to know them so automatically so that that word level recognition is so automatic for them. And it's such a critical component in how the brain reads an individual word. And that's why this foundation is so critical. So that's why these are quick pace, because we're building that automaticity that students really need. And if they don't have it, you will absolutely know that those are going to be your students who are going to struggle to learn to read very well and fluently. And then we know what that leads to with comprehension later on as well. So the first skill as we dive right in is rhyming. And I wanted to orient you to the screen because you're going to see the same sequence and we'll only talk about it this one time. But if you'll recall, the purple book is the pre-K book. The blue is the kindergarten book and the yellow is the primary book. So these colors and the weeks that are under each one of these skills, they correspond with those different books. So no matter what you're looking at, whether you're a pre-K teacher, you're a kindergarten teacher, or you're working with students who are 1st through 3rd grade, you will be able to see how these skills show up in your curriculum throughout that time. So you saw some of the rhyming activities on the video that was just shown. So there are some examples. I'll just go, through a couple of them. We know that these skills are also in a progression. So hearing and repeating rhyming words is a skill that's definitely not as complex as producing rhyming words. So, but if we saw the thumbs up, thumbs down activity, but some other, if we were doing rhyme production, I may, as the teacher, say call, fall, and then the teachers would respond, or the students would respond with things like haul, wall, tall. So let's try one of those. If I said quick, stick, you would respond with other rhyming words. And those might be like sick, thick, wick. Let's try another one. If I said blue, do, you may respond with words like you, to, woo. So there's some examples there. So we're going to move to the next. So you're also going to see a chart like this in every section. And this just, again, shows you across the weeks where the different skills show up. So pre-K is purple, the kindergarten is the blue, and the primary is the yellow. So just another way to orient you, to show you how these skills progress throughout the different weeks, whether you be asking students to repeat rhyming words or to recognize or produce them.
So the next skill that you're going to be working on is onset fluency. And it's when we isolate the beginning sound. So onset being that beginning sound or the sound in the word. So in preschool, we're going to do this by isolating a single sound that is represented by single letters. We're not doing blends or multiple letters in preschool. So we're going to move into generating words with the same onset and phoneme for words. Then we start classifying words based on their onset, that beginning sound, identifying the same onset in phonemes in a series of words, and then finally isolating the onset or pulling apart that beginning sound from a series of words. So we notice again that as we go through these different skills, that they get more complex as we keep going, and that as we get halfway down there, the pre-K drops off. So those are going to continue for a longer period of time and not get into those same more complex skills that we do in K and in the primary grades. So we're also going to take a look at how this develops the onset fluency throughout the curriculum in this visual chart. Notice that the onset fluency is included in all 3 of the levels of Heggerty program. So I always find these graphics particularly helpful for that vertical alignment of skills throughout the grade levels.
So now we're going to talk about blending. And as we begin to introduce the hand motions, keep in mind that you're always going to start on the right side of your body. So I'm going to go back here. So as the teacher, you want to start everything on the right side, because if you're modeling it as the progression of reading so that your students will see it left to right. And that's really important. So as we're practicing some of the hand motions today, I want to make sure that you practice as the teacher and not as the student. So don't practice as the student, but practice as the teacher. So when we start with a skill like blending, we would go ahead and for this one, when we start with compound words, we move one more here. our hands are, we put the one word in the one hand and we put the other word in the other hand, and then we close them together. So if we had the word football, we would do football, football. If we had butterfly, it would be butter, fly, butterfly. If we had the word airplane, it would be airplane, airplane. So now you try the next one. Say mail, box, mailbox. And one more, gold, fish, goldfish. Good job. So that's compound words. Now when we blend phonemes and syllables, we are going to use the chopping hands. And you saw the teacher demonstrate this in the video. So our chopping hands are our hands together and we're chopping them across our body. And so, and then we're scooping them across as we do that. So if we're first doing by syllables, we'll just do a couple of these as an example. If the word is shower, we wouldn't say the word, we'd say shower, shower. And then we would say chowder, chowder. So that's how we would use the choppers. The same with the phonemes. So if our first word was toy, even though I wouldn't tell them because we're blending, but we would do oi, and the students would say toy. So, or we would say oi, d, and the students would say void. Or we might say j, oi, n, and the students would say join. So now, if you haven't already been, joining in with me, go ahead and do that. We're going to try two more, and the word is south. Very good. And let's do one more. N, oi, z, noise. And the last piece of this is that each of, although we linked this in the Heggerty resource that we shared, we also have all of Elisa's videos linked in here. We're not going to have time for these today, but these are an awesome reference resource for you to go back to learn the hand motions. And all these are available on the Heggerty YouTube channel as well. And then you can see the progression of skills here with the blending.
All right, so we're going to jump into final sounds. So remember, those final sounds are more difficult for students to hear than the initial sound, that onset sound. So we're getting a little bit more complex as we go into final sounds. Remember that when we're doing the hand motions, you're always leading with your right hand as the instructor. Students will lead with the other way, but you want to start with your right hand and do everything from left to right, because the way they will see it is with the progression of reading from left to right. But in order for them to do that, you need to make sure that you are starting with your right hand. So we're going to keep emphasizing that as we go along. So some people have phonics programs that have other gestures in it. These are the suggested gestures and hand motions that they use in the Heggerty curriculum. If you are using other gestures with this, that is perfectly fine. There's no gesture police or hand motion police that's going to come to you and say you're doing it wrong. But the key is to keep it consistent. So if you are tapping in some programs, you can tap in Heggerty as well. If you are using other motions, and you saw in that video she was adding some additional motions, as long as you keep it consistent, because the point of this is to give that concrete example to an abstract sound. So you want to make sure that that's what you're doing with students. So we're going to take a look at the punch it out. Because this is more advanced skill than the onset and rhyme, we do have a hand motion that goes with it. So we're going to take a look at this punch it out. So what we're going to do is to identify that ending sound, which is more difficult, paying attention and giving them that concrete example. So as we isolate that final phoneme, it is in all 3 levels of the Heggerty curriculum. You can see on the screen the purple, blue, and yellow, which indicates the different levels. Identifying the same sounds in a series or isolating those final syllables. So for this, I'm going to use my left arm and I'm going to gesture across my body from the right side and punch out that final sound. So using my left arm, moving across my body and punch it out. So let's take a look at the word sat. So if we start with our left hand to the right side and do sat and punch out that final sound of the t. So students can begin to hear that sound. Even in multisyllabic words like the word mitten, we're going to start with our left hand going across the right side of our body. Mitten, mitten. We get that n sound at the end so that we're punching that out. And sometimes that can be more difficult because you don't want to add in that vowel sound to the punch, just that n sound at the end of the word. This is where additional practice really helps. So again, we're just referencing the fact that all of these hand motions are available on the Heggerty website, and so we've included them in that reference guide so that you can go to our website at SST3 and find these resources so you can practice along with Elisa and the videos that she's provided. So we're also talking about medial sounds. So as we're talking about isolating final and medial sounds, we're not going to punch out a medial sound, but we're going to use a hand motion called the roller coaster. So the roller coaster, we're going to start low and go high for the middle sound and then come back down. It again gives that concrete hand motion for students to hear that medial sound and then come back down. I know it's obvious, but we just want to mention you cannot do roller coaster, right, with something that has only two sounds. You have to have that middle sound in order to do that. So let's take a look at the word moth, okay? So we're going to start with our right hand, and we're starting from right side to our left side because you are practicing as the teacher. So if we say the word moth, what's the word? Moth. And we're going to say moth. Do it again. Moth. And it gives that visual to isolating those medial sounds. The medial sounds are the most difficult when isolating. Those are our vowel sounds, and sometimes there's multiple sounds. So you want to make sure you spend some time doing that, helping students to hear that so they're able to map that with their phonological processor and as they move into orthographic mapping in their phonics program as well. So again, there's another video that you can reference with final and medial sounds. And then we have this visual. It is in all three levels of the curriculum, both that punch it out and that roller coaster. So the skills are getting progressively harder as we go.
I'm going to move on, Jackie, to the next skill.
Sounds good.
So now we're at segmenting, and so we segment compound words, but then we also know that we segment the other types of parts of the words, like onset and rhymes, syllables, and phonemes. So in this case, the hand motions for this compound word would be to hold your palms out, say the word, and then pull the word apart. So if the word is dollhouse, I would pull them apart, dollhouse. Outside, I would pull them apart, outside. And notice that I'm moving my right hand first because that's the first part of the word, and then my left hand second, which is the second part of that word. So then again, for segmenting words, we are again going to excuse me, use those chopping hands. So this time we're segmenting with the choppers, just like we did with the blending. So if I said the word was toy, you would segment oi. If I said join, then you would say oin. So go ahead and try to segment at the syllable level with me. Again, starting on your right side. The word is poison, poison. Good job. The word is flower, flower. So we would segment by, like I said, onset rhymes, syllables, phonemes. And then if we did a phoneme level example, the word is foil, oi, ol. So you can see, again, we're using those choppers so that the students are able to see those different parts of the words. Again, there's the segmenting hand motions for video from Elisa. We reference those, and we'll put that link up to our website with those resource page again at the end if you weren't able to get there. And you can see how segmenting moves through the pre-K, the kindergarten, and the primary, all those different levels, again, in this chart. So we're going to go ahead and move past this chat because we are coming up on the 10:30 time, and we're probably going to go a few more minutes with content. So hopefully you planned to stick around for the Q&A session. We're sorry we're dipping into that time, but we think it's important to get through a few more skills here before we finish. So we're going to move on to addition, and I think that this one is yours, Jackie.
Yes. So we're going to talk about manipulating phonemes by adding them. So we don't start by adding individual phonemes. We start by adding words to make compound words. So we are, again, moving from big sounds to little sounds because that is how we get more complex, is from big sounds to little sounds. So we add words, two words together to make compound words. Then we add syllables of word parts, and then we move on to individual phonemes. So for this, we're going to gesture with our palms up. And we again start with our right hand as the teacher. We always start with the right hand. So for example, if we were to say the word paint, so we're saying painter, painter. So if we said, if we added a phoneme and we're saying in, and we add f, we get fin. Another one, if we were going to say the word, if we said winter, winter, or add rut. So you can do this with those compound words, starting with those big units of sounds and moving down into those smaller units of sounds, but giving those concrete examples to go with it. Again, there's another video with Elisa from the Heggerty program in order to give you that example when you need to practice on your own. And then you can also see that adding goes through all three levels of the curriculum, pre-K through primary, moving from those big sounds of words all the way down to those individual phonemes.
So the next skill is deletion or deleting phonemes. And again, when we are working on this, again, you'll see the compound words, you'll see the syllables and the phoneme level. So if we start off with compound words, if the word was cowboy, I'd show the entire word with both my hands, and then I delete the second or first part of the word depending on which word moves. So if I said the word is cowboy without boy, the new word is cow. If I said the word is sunset without sun or without set, the word is sun. So now you try one. If I say the word is football without ball, what's left? Foot. Very good. Now we also might do this at the phoneme, I'm sorry, at the word level, at the syllable level. So if we had the word like, if we had the word forget and we said without get, the word is for. So you notice I'm always moving this hand that's taking away the word part that I'm deleting. If I said the word below without low, the word is be. So those are some examples for that. And then go ahead and try the phoneme level with me. So the word is rice without s, The word is rye. The word is void without d. The word is voy. And without this, the word is meat without m. The word is, I'm sorry, without t, the word is me. So those are some examples of that. How you would show the hand motion with the deleting. So you're taking it away. If I was manipulating this part of the word, then I would move that hand. You can see again, here's the skill progression. We've got Elisa's video linked here, and then you can see again how these skills are in all levels, but move across the curriculum in the different weeks. And I think Jackie's got substituting now.
Yes. So we're going to move into what is the most challenging skill for students, which is the substituting. So first we added sounds and we deleted sounds, and then we're going to substitute sounds. And this is where it gets challenging for students, moving from big sounds to little sounds. So we start by substituting words in compound words, but we're going to do this with fists. So our hand motion for this that Heggerty suggests is the fist. So if our word is snowflake, what's our word? Snowflake. So we're going to change flake to man, snowman. So we're going to move the part of the word that we're changing. So if we change the first part of the word, we move our right hand. Second part of the word, we would move our left hand, and then we show students how we put that together. So if we move to smaller sounds, the word is timber. What's our word? Timber. Change tim to num, we have number. You see how we're again putting them together. And then we can, if we substitute medial sounds, there's no hand motion for substituting medial sounds because we're showing them the beginning and end. But if we said the word meat, what's our word? Meat. Change E to O, and the word is moat. So there is no hand motion for substituting those medial sounds, but we still are pulling out and substituting medial sounds as you get into the kindergarten and primary levels. There's hand motion video practice for you again, and that is linked on our website. And then you can see the progression throughout all 3 levels of the Heggerty curriculum.
So letter naming is the next skill, and you actually saw a wonderful demonstration of this in the video. So I'm not going to really go over the letter naming. I am going to mention though, if you'll recall her pace, it was letter is, and a student said the letter name and sound is. And so, and she also prompted for both of the letter sounds. So for like letter is C, sound is K or S. So notice that she also did that. But I wanted to keep in mind and let you know that Heggerty, the website actually has the letter naming cards so available for download. So if you don't have those, they have these nice cards that you can download with pictures and the letter name. But this letter naming isn't just for students at the early levels where they're just identifying letters. So they also have cards that, for example, have the vowel teams on them. Or another example would be the R-controlled vowel list. So there are cards for different varieties, and you, depending on where your students are, you would incorporate this letter naming activity to go along with wherever you are in your phonics program. So this is that nice connection that you can bridge between the two when you're thinking about the letter naming. Also keep in mind that you wouldn't necessarily flash through every single letter of the alphabet, and you would also do them in random order, not from A to Z. To really, again, we're working on building that automaticity. We can't underscore or stress enough the need for automaticity with phonemic awareness skills. And then another example of another activity that you might see is the letter cheer, where the student or where the teacher would say, give me an A, and she would write that, and the students would say or A. So there would be an example there where you would also need to make sure you prompted at that time for the students to give you the sound and not the letter name. And here you can see how the letter naming progresses, and notice that, you know, they do bring in digraphs and blends in kindergarten, and all those resources are available for free online on the Heggerty website if you don't have those cards already as part of some of the materials that you might have in your classroom.
So language awareness, again, is the only other part where you might bring in some print. So this is dealing with nursery rhymes, reciting nursery rhymes. It might be repeating sentences out loud. When we get into the kindergarten and primary books, we're going to break sentences apart into spoken words and repeat sentences. So it's really important for students to be able to hear those individual words that are in sentences. And nursery rhymes, there is a lot of research out there about how important nursery rhymes are in children's life. Hearing those nursery rhymes, our students today might not have access to nursery rhymes like we had. We knew our nursery rhymes, could recite them. We want to bring those back. They are free and available openly online. So one of the suggestions you could do is, when it is in your book or in your lesson to have that nursery rhyme, go online, find that nursery rhyme, print it out big, have it available for the students so that you can move through those nursery rhymes and sentences with the students. The only areas of prep in the Heggerty lessons would be in the area of the letter naming, for you to have those cards available to you, and the nursery rhymes. This is really low prep. It's just about that practice. So again, you can see how language awareness is in all 3 levels of the Heggerty curriculum. The primary level, beginning at week 9, that drops off. So especially if you are new to the Heggerty curriculum in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, you're going to want to continue that piece of it without extending your time past that 10 to 15 minute range. So you can use sentences, short poems, or nursery rhymes through this time if you're going to continue that. But you'll notice that after week 9, it's no longer in your book. So just really summarizing the Heggerty program. So again, this is whole class. We're talking about tier 1 core instruction for the whole class. Don't do it in small group just to say you're doing small group. It can also be used in tier 2 and tier 3 with students who've been identified. So we're going to diagnose, so we're going to find out what their problem is, where their struggles are, and then you can prescribe how you're going to do this. So it can be done in several different ways. If you have a tier 2 group or tier 3 students, you can pull out individual skills and just work on those skills. Or you can go back either in the book that you have, or use a book, let's say use the blue book if you're in yellow, or use the purple book if you're in the blue book, to give them a different lesson. So you don't need to go over the same exact lesson as a double dose. We want to keep it a perky pace, 10 to 12 minutes. Don't take advantage of those teachable moments. You want to keep it moving and minimize the teacher talk. So just like in the letter naming part, it's letter is, sound is, and we keep it moving. Lots of people think that if they add in that phonics component or those letters or the words and they're showing them, they're increasing the rigor. But what you're really doing is you're moving students out of that phonological processing system in their brain. And that's where we want to keep them focused. So again, no print. This is all about the sounds. Daily practice. Keep that time sacred. Make sure that you do that. Whether you're doing this online or you're doing it live in a classroom, make sure that that time is sacred time and you get that in. Through all 3 tiers of a multi-tiered system of support, we're supporting all the students. Regular education, special education, they all need to hear phonological awareness on a daily basis. We always diagnose before we prescribe, so that we don't have that Oprah effect of you get this intervention and you get this intervention and you get this intervention. We want to make sure that students are getting exactly what they need in every tier of a multi-tiered system of support. So we did talk about this at the beginning. We showed these 3 different levels of support. Again, today we were talking really about that core 1 or tier 1 core instruction for all students, a scope and sequence for 10 to 15 minutes a day. We will be providing other sessions that we have not scheduled yet, but those other sessions where we're going to dive more into tier 2 and tier 3, and some of those ways that we can assess students in order to then prescribe what they need. So just for a quick second, we want to talk about universal screeners. A universal screener is the screener that everyone gets. So you might be doing Dibbles or Acadience or Ames Web. This is going to give you that indication if there are students who are struggling in phonemic awareness skills. And as a result, you might want to use some additional assessments to dig down deeper and really diagnose where students are having that difficulty if they're going to move into tier 2 and tier 3 interventions, because our time is so valuable and so precious. We don't have unlimited time. So we want to make sure that we're doing exactly what students need. So here is just a sample screen. Heggerty does have an assessment on their website. If you go to that heggerty.org website and in the downloads or resources, they have an assessment that you can give to students as a one-on-one assessment. But also, if you have the David Kilpatrick Equipped for Reading Success, you can get the PAST assessment, P-A-S-T assessment, which can also be found online. He's pretty generous with his materials. The entire book is not online, but the sections that you would need in order to give the assessment and the directions for giving that assessment, you can find pretty readily available online. So we've talked about this, the minimal prep. Letter cards are really all you need in order to get ready. Maybe those nursery rhymes, you might need to prep that. It's minimal prep, but start practicing right away while it's fresh in your head after we've done these things. Go back and reference those videos that we've given you the links to, and you can find that on our website or on the Heggerty website. Aim for 15 minutes max. Keep it at that perky pace. If it takes you too long, don't skip any of the skills, but you can take out some of the examples within each skill. So if there's 10 examples, make it 5 until you get that pace up, or if there's a day where you just don't have the time that you need, but do it on a daily basis. One of the things that I wanted to mention was if you have a week, let's say Memorial Day week is coming up, and you have off on a Monday, you would do Tuesday's lesson. Don't mess yourself up and go back to Monday's lesson and now today's Friday and you're really doing Thursday. That'll just mess you up. So if you have a shortened week, just do the days of the week that you are in session, and then the next week go back to your full 5 days. But you want to keep with that scope and sequence and protect your time. Incorporating phonological awareness. Make sure that you bring this in other parts of the day. So you can do this in partner and small group work. They can work on their sounds. You can incorporate this into transitions throughout your school day. As you're reading books, you can do some word play. You can do some poetry and nursery rhyme activities and plan for that extra practice. That way students see those connections happening everywhere. We want to make sure that they have that. So tier 1, all students, 10 to 12, 10 to 15 minutes, the entire lesson. Tier 2, you can pull out parts of that lesson or go back in the book. One of the questions that we often have is, well, in my phonics program that I'm doing, there's a little bit of phonemic awareness. Should I take that out? Will it confuse students? No, leave that in there. That warm up, that 2 to 3 minute warm up in that phonics lesson is going to prime their pump for the sounds that you're focusing on in the phonics section of your literacy block. So you want to keep that 2 to 3 minutes. Do Heggerty for that 10 to 15 minutes, but then do that introductory work, because those sounds are going to make them aware of the sounds that you're about to work on, mapping the phonological to the orthographic, so students can map those together and really get that concrete connection. So think beyond the segmenting and blending. It leads into that sight words. So you want to talk to students as you're talking about sight words, as you are getting them with the automaticity. You want to make sure that you bring this in. All struggling readers can benefit from phonemic awareness instruction, no matter what grade. They're never too old to get this phonemic awareness, but this is not just for struggling students. It's for everyone.
So we want to take this time now. We are actually going to open up the chat to take some questions, but we also, and also here's our contact information. So if you have any questions after this session, you want to reach out to us. I know many of you emailed me before the session, and I tried to respond to all those that emailed me ahead of time. So know that you have our emails there. But the last thing is too, is if you want to get the credit for the session today, you can go ahead and click on this tiny URL that Lisa and Candace are going to put this into the chat so that you can click directly on it. So maybe, I don't know if you've opened the chat yet, but if you maybe want to close it back and let this be the first thing that people see. So this is a quick link to a survey about the session, and then this will produce a certificate for you for your time with us today. So that's an opportunity. You can also take a picture of the QR code that's on the screen and go ahead and get in that way to the session.
Yeah. So you just, if you have an iPhone, or you just open your camera, you don't need to take a picture, just move your iPhone to that QR code and a box will pop up. When you touch that, it'll take you right to the survey.
So this does conclude, like I said, the formal part of our presentation, but we would love if you want to stick around and you have any questions. We've got about 9 minutes left, and Candace and Lisa are going to be taking a look at those questions and kind of sharing some of those with us. We may not get to all of them depending on what you have, but know that you have our emails, you have the Heggerty resources, and we're just so thrilled that so many of you could join us today. This has been really fun, and we hope that you got some information about the Heggerty curriculum and maybe some things you didn't know about the importance of phonemic and phonological awareness for literacy success for students. So we really appreciate you being here today.
Okay, so a good question that we have is, how can we use this during remote learning at the beginning of the school year?
Yeah, so for remote learning, one of two ways that you can do this. You can do this on a Zoom call with your students. Again, you're going to want to set up those norms with students on Zoom calls or Google Meets or whatever platform you're using, but set up those norms with them that they are, you know, to make sure they're paying attention and doing those things. But you can do this over video with them, or you can, I would say, you can record it and have it available for students to watch multiple times. So loading it into their Google Classroom, or again, whatever platform your district is using, you can have this readily available for them to practice. With that, I would make sure that the parents, give them a little bit of heads up on what's going on and maybe help them out. But I've seen great success with teachers doing this on video calls.
I saw another comment in or question in here from Susie, and it maybe it had been sent to me privately. So she wanted to know, which book do we start with if there's no preschool associated with our school? So you start with the book that corresponds with your students' grade levels or, you know, age level. So because this is tier 1 core instruction, if you were in a kindergarten classroom, you would start with kindergarten. If you had 1st through 3rd, you would start with the primary. So the scope and sequence helps support, you know, where you start, but you the skills that are in those particular books are appropriate for those grade levels and age levels. So even though the students may not have had it before, you want to start with what's age grade level appropriate for them. And if you had any other comments, Jackie.
Another good question we did get is, so it's a comment in a question, the lessons are for the entire class, but are there other lessons available once you target students tiers 2 and 3 who need intervention in specific areas?
So based on the student's assessment, you would see where they're struggling. And those assessments like the PAST, P-A-S-T, from David Kilpatrick, or the Heggerty assessment really will get you down into, does a student, are they struggling with the substitution? Are they struggling with medial sounds? What part are they struggling with? So that then you can target those specific skills, and you can pull those skills out of either the book that you're working in or the book before it, or you can do the whole 10 to 15 minute lesson with them. But using those appropriate assessments with students will help you to diagnose where they are.
We have another question. When will the tier 2 and 3 sessions be held?
So we don't have anything on the calendar just yet, but when we do, we will put that out there.
With that session too, we also hope to go into a little bit deeper with assessment. I know Jackie barely had an opportunity to barely mention the PAST assessment from Dr. David Kilpatrick. So we would want to share that with everybody. And then we would also, you know, make sure you had the Heggerty resources too. They really do have a wealth of information on their website, which is really important to note. And they have put a lot more materials out there for teacher use at this time during the extended school closure. So be sure to check out their website and also their YouTube channel.
Okay, and we have another question in a comment. I work with students with disabilities that utilize voice.
Would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Sorry, Candace, what was that?
Okay, we have a question from, in a comment. I work with students with disabilities that utilize voice output devices, and I'm just wondering if the expected response is put in their device, or are there other suggestions for responses from students or if the teacher manual includes modifications, accommodations, recommendations?
So thank you, Elizabeth, for your question. There aren't any recommendations or modifications that are included in the manual, but you absolutely can do modifications with the voice output devices for your students. So, you know, I don't know how big of an array of vocabulary that your students might have, or if you're using some of the, you know, the switches like I showed at the beginning of the session or kind of in the middle of the session. So it would really be depending on what the voice output is. So if you had a student who did have access to, for example, a keyboard, you know, you could record or put those phonemes in there so that their voice output would be the phonemes that you were asking for. For syllable level activities and things like that, you could have students be choosing between, you know, whether a word was a 1 syllable, a 2 syllable, a 3 syllable. So there might be some things like that. So there really isn't any hard and fast rule about what the expected responses would be, but I would just encourage you to think about what would you expect your students who were using their voice to talk, and think about how those responses then could be generated. From, you know, like I said, it's going to also be dependent on the student, depending on what access and what kind of communication device they might have, or how many locations it has, and those kinds of things. So I hope that's helpful. If you want to also email me and we could dialogue about this, I would be more than happy to talk with you about it too. But thanks for that great question.
Another question we have, what resources are there for older students that will not make them feel they are doing baby work?
Yeah, so that's this book from David Kilpatrick, is this Equipped for Reading Success. There's a whole section about 1-minute activities that are really appropriate for older students, because they might kind of think that the Heggerty lessons are baby work, or so if you can get this resource, this is a great resource to use with older students.
Lindsay and Jackie, there is a question that from Elizabeth, who says that she uses foundations. Is it okay to use those letter cards?
Yes. Yeah, using the foundations cards are great. So the letter cards that Heggerty provides on their website, that's if you don't have any other letter cards, but using the letter cards that you already use with foundations or another phonics program is absolutely appropriate. Same as using the hand motions. If you have hand motions that come in with a phonics program that you use, you can use those hand motions in the Heggerty program as long as you have consistency. So whenever you're adding, whenever you're deleting or substituting, having consistency over hand motions is great, and using letter cards from another program, absolutely appropriate.
Thanks for feeding that question. It's hard, Susan, to see in the feed all the different questions, so I appreciate you finding that one. So we're right at 11 o'clock. So if there are no more questions, we just, again, on behalf of the whole team, I'm going to include Susan Schraff in that, but she's our assistant director at the SST. But I'd also like to thank Jackie for being my co-facilitator in this session, as well as Lisa Scott and Candace Mutzel for monitoring the chat. We couldn't have done it without the whole team this morning to pull this off. So thanks so much for tuning in, and definitely look for other announcements and updates on further sessions. So we can't say how much we appreciate you being with us today. So have a good rest of your day and a great Friday and weekend. Thanks.
Thank you.